Hey everybody, it's drive home brain dump time. I hope I don't forget everything I just said. I was recording a video and I got a phone call in the middle of it, which happens on occasion, and then I had to pretty much start over.
Here we see Matt Dillahunty doing one of his brain dumps. As you may know, Matt's very much in demand. Matt's a very busy and important guy, and unlike the rest of us, he really doesn't have the time to stay at home and record a YouTube video, much less one with any production values or where there's any evidence he took the time to figure out what in fuck he's talking about. His lack of method got him supporting Atheism Plus and all their fine activist work because he really was too busy doing other things to figure out what there was to this whole Atheism Plus thing that it's sounding kind of good. For that reason, I also assume Matt Dillahunty supports the right to life because who could argue with that? Americans for prosperity because we should all prosper, right? Operation Iraqi Freedom because everyone should be free, and pacification because it sounds so very fucking relaxing. Now, to be fair to Matt, I'm sure he had some idea what a bunch of ideological fuckwits, harassers, and bullies the Atheism Plus crowd is, because he's been known to do some bullying himself. But he didn't mind their reign of terror right up until the moment where his own head went rolling from the guillotine. Still, it's very, very important that Matt Dillahunty share his starving orphan thoughts with us, no matter how many times he's been wrong. But right now, look at what Matt is doing. Not what he's saying, which is less and less important by the minute, but what he is doing while recording this all-important brain dump. He's driving a car. Last I checked, he has 3 or 4 videos like this, so it's already a habit. Now, there's nothing wrong with thinking things through during one's downtime. I have some of my better ideas while doing the dishes. The difference is, when I do that, I don't accidentally lob coffee cups at people's heads. And seriously, thinking shit through isn't one of Matt Dillahunty's strong points anyway. Watch Matt. He's driving. He takes his eyes off the road to look into the lens of his smartphone. He gestures. Obviously, doing the brain dump is commanding a lot of his attention while he's driving a car during his morning commute or his drive home. Just by way of comparison, let me show you part of my morning commute. I'm in the left lane because I have to be. Further down is an exit ramp to the right, and during weekdays, vehicles in the right lane have to make that right turn onto the exit. Police often wait just past that point and ticket anyone who doesn't. I was warned by the police that means me. And I just put up with the not occasional fury of drivers for it. Although motorists don't consider me to be a vehicle, the police do. Another reason I don't want to be on the right side is because that's where the action is mostly. There are buses pulling in and out, and the last thing I want to do is get caught between a bus and the curb, hit the back of a bus, or sideswipe a bus pulling out because I'd either get creamed by the traffic coming up behind me or bounced into oncoming traffic. Also, people do run out from in front of buses, especially if they are only looking out for cars and won't be paying attention to a bicycle. And no, I don't want to be on the sidewalk. The sidewalk is uneven, it has bus stops and people walking their dogs. And see this? When cars pull out, they stop and look at what's coming up the road, not what's coming up the sidewalk. It's a sidewalk. It's not for vehicles. A bicycle is a vehicle. See this side road before the overpass where the truck is going in? Well, on June 23rd of this year, there was a car coming out. He stopped at the stop sign and then pulled out and stopped right in the lane. I was in the right lane on the right side because it was a weekend. And in the moment before impact, I realized he was either talking to his passenger or looking over his shoulder at the merge traffic. And he did this with about 10 feet between us, so I had nowhere to go but straight into the side of his car. I didn't even have time to grab my brakes. According to some joggers who witnessed this, as told to me by the investigating officer, I got off a shout of, "Hey," before my bike struck the car. And then I was catapulted into the car frame between the driver's side windshield and the driver's side window. I broke the windshield with my abdomen, and then that angled section of frame launched me in the air in a parabolic arc. The bike stayed, and I went. And for a moment, my feet, locked into the SPD pedals, tried to stay behind too. My body went forward, and I hyperextended both my ankles. My left bike shoe went flying off, and I rotated on a couple of axes until I landed on the pavement. I landed on my left heel, which was now without any protection in the form of a shoe, and fractured my calcaneus bone, the heel. And then I lacerated both my forearms and got some other incidental road rash. I had internal bruising across my abdomen, including my liver and spleen, which luckily were not shattered despite what the EMTs thought. And all of that ended in a hematoma the size of a baseball on my intestines. And my ankles were a mess for a couple of weeks, but it took 2 months for an MRI to figure out that my heel was fractured. And I had been walking around on it for a couple of months. By then, it was hamburger straight into the marrow. And the hematoma, they kept me in the trauma ward overnight to make sure I didn't have any internal bleeding. The driver said what they always say: I didn't see him. Now that might be the case. It might be that some drivers just have this perceptual set where they don't recognize anything but another car. But also, I think a lot of that is code for I was paying attention to everything but driving. Finally, I'm able to duck back onto side streets. I'm not one of those douchebag cyclists who take the lane and proudly ride right in the middle of the street with a bunch of cars honking behind him. On that stretch of road, I'm in the lane where I am only because it's the lesser of a lot of evils.
Hey everybody, so really quickly on my lunch break, I wanted to touch on a couple things that happened this weekend and the fallout from this morning. I've got to do a clarification for Carla Porter, and I wanted to put it in here. But first, we tried to do a live TV show from our building, in the new studio in our building this weekend. Some of it went really well, some of it didn't. The good news is that we did get a stream out for a while, that it was audio, video.
Now, that accident that I had in June of this year was the second time in 2 years that some car completely creamed me. The previous time was on the same road, and a car making left turn against traffic turned right into me, clipped the bicycle just behind my body, and essentially broke it in half. And you know, when you ride in any area where there's traffic, there's cars, there's people, there's anything going on, near misses are a fact of life. You develop a sixth sense. You become hyper-vigilant. You become a gerbil on caffeine, trying to anticipate people's stupidity. But you can't anticipate every form of stupid. I have a friend of mine that had both her ankles shattered by a taxi cab on a bicycle. She is a study in plates and screws. She's 32 years old. She will never walk again normally. I have another woman I know that went to the gym that I went to. That was a jogger. She had stopped at a crosswalk and a car stopped to let her go, and the car coming up behind that car saw the car stop, swerved around it, and nailed her. It took a couple of hours for them to get the car off on top of her, and it took her a week to die. What's my point? My point is this, Matt. You're recording brain dumps while driving? Well, let me tell you something. Nothing you think, nothing you say, nothing that you're planning, none of the feeble little thoughts in your fucking head is so important that you can be a distracted driver. Yeah, I know. All of you say, oh, I'm a really good driver. No, you know something? When you say that and do this, that means by definition, you are a shit driver. My point is this: stop doing it, you narcissistic bastard. I'm not even going to appeal to the fact that you think you care about people, that you're interested in social justice. The proof is in the pudding. And when some arrogant, self-important asshole starts recording YouTube videos while driving a motor vehicle, he's just pain to someone else waiting to happen. Stop doing it. That's all.